Hey solos, so you're going to Epcot by yourself. How do you even plan your day? Well, here's a little solo spoiler for you. You should decide if you are going for rides, vibes, or food, and then budget your time accordingly. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do. And welcome to Solo Magic, the podcast about the magic of going to Disney World solo. In this episode, I'm going to talk about some stories, tips, tricks, and information about Epcot as a park, and to be able to provide some information for you so that you can plan the most perfect day for you at Epcot by yourself. Now, before we begin, this is a new podcast, so it is extra important for you to rate and review and share with friends and subscribe. I always forget to say subscribe. Make sure that people know about the podcast if you think there's information that could be really interesting to them. And I have a whole slew of programming coming up. We're going to do all of the parks. Then we're going to do Disney Springs. I'm going to talk about the hotels. There's going to be some prep. How do you prep for a fall trip? How do you prep for a summer trip? Oh, bring a lot of ice. There's going to be a lot of episodes coming up. I post usually once a week, although I've been doing twice a week because there's a lot of bonus content I want to make sure you get. So make sure that you subscribe so that you know when the episodes are coming. Again, rate, share, all that stuff is really great. I am on Instagram on Disney_solo_magic. And I use Instagram as an illustration of the episode. So make sure you follow me on Instagram so you can see some of the photos of things that I'm talking about in this episode. But also Instagram is a really great way to get in touch with me if you want to send me a DM and tell me what your favorite thing to do in Epcot is, or if you want to say, oh, it'd be really cool to be on your podcast and share my experience as a solo travel. That is also cool. I'm totally into that. So please follow me on Instagram, Disney_solo_magic. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, and I think we're ready to get into it. Now, I don't think that Epcot is a difficult park for you to imagine going solo. In fact, if you've gone with a family member or children and you're walking around, you might think oh, I could go for a drink over there if I wasn't with these people. Whereas at Magic Kingdom or maybe Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom too, you might have to think more about what you might do by yourself. But Epcot is really, quote, more of an adult theme park. Oh, as soon as I said adult theme park, I imagine that scene in Beetlejuice when Beetlejuice goes to the brothel. It's girls. It's not that type of adult theme park, so it's not what I mean. But it is definitely not meant to be the same type of just in-your-face eye candy that Magic Kingdom is. It was designed to be a edutainment, education and entertainment park that talks about innovations in the future and the land and the water and the, all these different cultures and things like that. So it like I said, is not meant really for kids in the same way that Magic Kingdom is. And if you really pay attention, you can see that they have put things in place to be more attractive for kids, but they were not there originally. I'm thinking of the Kid Cot stations. So in the World Showcase, the place that is all the different pavilions from different countries around the world, there's a little table set up in an area kind of at the back where the kids can do some crafts and get a stamp on their passport. And Epcot wasn't designed to have those spaces. They just realized they needed a space for kids to go and be kids for a little bit. So you can definitely go to Epcot as an adult and have a wonderful time and not think oh, is it weird I'm here without children? No, it's definitely not. But if you were planning a day at Epcot by yourself, or a couple days perhaps, you might think about how best do I organize and arrange this day. And I think it's good to think about it as rides, vibes, or food. You can do maybe 2 of those, but you can't do all 3 of them. And if you are thinking about the day in that way, it can help you budget your time, it can help you budget your money, but it can also really help you kind of make an overall plan for the day that you can prioritize the things that you want to do. That's not to say if you're there for the food, you can't do a couple rides. Of course, go do the rides. Like, do whatever you want. Like, no one is controlling your day. But it does mean that if you are going for the food, that you might have a food plan, and then you're like, okay, now how do I put the rides in my day? Now, I find it really easy to spend a day at Epcot. In fact, of all of my solo trips, like, I will go to Florida just for Epcot. And then when I'm there, of course, do the other parks. But I'll never like make a trip to Florida to go to Animal Kingdom or to go to Magic Kingdom. I will go for Epcot though, because there are so many cool things happening with the festivals, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And so because I don't have a difficult time ever spending a day in Epcot, and especially going to Epcot even without a plan, I was really kind of thinking about what might this podcast episode be like or be about. And then I was thinking it's because I go for vibes and I go for food. It's really, really weird for me to think that people just go to Epcot for rides. And so that's when I started thinking like, yeah, of course there's people that are just going for the big rides. Like why why not? So that's when I started thinking that rides, vibes, and food, that is a really good way of thinking about it. So I'm going to talk about rides first, and then I'm going to talk about vibes and food. So there is like 2.5, or maybe I should say like 2 and 2/2 big rides at Epcot. The first one is Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a brand new ride, and although I'm not a ride person, I've been on it a few times, and it is so much fun. It has a really awesome soundtrack of like 80s and 90s music, and every time I go, I'll like call a family member, like my sister, or I'll call a friend, and I'm like, I really wish you were here because I want you to take this roller coaster with me and tell me how brave I am that I did it by myself. None of them have taken up that offer, and it also isn't actually a roller coaster. I'm just lumping all rides into that one generic title. But Guardians of the Galaxy is the number one ride at Epcot, especially because it's new, but also because it is so much fun. Tron just opened at Magic Kingdom, and a lot of people think that Guardians is like, quote, better than Tron. I haven't been on Tron. I'm not as interested in it. Maybe it's because it doesn't have a soundtrack. But I definitely like Guardians, and I will like pay the fancy ride fee to skip the line to go on it. So I am recording this episode the same time that you are listening to it. Oh, that's not true. I am recording this episode in April 2024, and if you were listening to it the day or the week that I have published it, then you're listening to it exactly at the same time. And when I am recording it, there is currently 2 ways for you to get on Guardians of the Galaxy. One is a virtual queue that you have to like sign up for, and they will tell you when there is a boarding group that's available for you, and that way you don't need to like stand in a physical line. You can stand in your virtual line, and then hopefully you'll get on the ride. If you are signing up for the virtual queue later in the evening, you may not get it, but I don't hear that happening too often. So that's one way, the virtual queue. And the second way is through a lightning lane. Now, Genie Plus is the system that you can buy in order to skip the lines on particular rides. It's like complicated, not complicated, blah, 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 blah. However, Guardians of the Galaxy does not actually work with that same system of Genie Plus. So even though you've paid $20, $30 for Genie Plus, if you want to ride on Guardians of the Galaxy, you have to pay an additional fee. Now, you don't need regular Genie Plus in order to pay that additional fee. You might just want to ride that one ride, and you pay the extra cost, whether it's like $12 or $15, something like that, and then you skip the line even more. That's the option that I've done because I'm by myself. And I mean, that's, one of the perks of going solo. You don't need to think about those purchase options if you have a whole group of 4 or 5 of you. If it's just by yourself, you can take a look at the cost and decide if that is right for you. For me, it was right because I wanted to ride the ride. I didn't want to be in the virtual queue because I didn't want my day to be kind of organized by that. And when you're in the virtual queue anyway, like once they call your number, you then actually will need to go into a physical queue, although it is indoors, so that makes it a little bit easier. And then you'll have to wait, just like you normally do. But if you buy the fancy ride Lightning Lane, it does move you ahead of the crowd. Now, I've seen some YouTube videos that have said that if you do the Lightning Lane for Guardians of the Galaxy and you miss the main queue area in the building, you're actually going to miss a lot of really cool set pieces or props or things like that has been set up in the line area. And if you're a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan, that's a really cool thing to check out. I am not a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan, so I don't care. Now, I would care about certain things. I would care about certain franchises, certain movies, but for the Guardians of the Galaxy, I know enough about it that I can feel like part of the story, but not so much that I want to wait extra time to be able to see props that I don't really get. So that is Guardians of the Galaxy. The second really big ride is the Ratatouille ride, which is literally at the opposite end of the park. It is in the France Pavilion, and it is a, what is it called? A trackless vehicle in which you shrink down to be like a little rat, and then you go through a kitchen. Now, I get motion sickness a lot, and I was really, really worried about getting motion sickness on Guardians of the Galaxy. I was fine, but for Ratatouille, I actually do get motion sick. And I'm just like, oh my God, get me out of this ride. It's really funny because it is not a scary ride, but I do get motion sickness. It's a 3D ride, so you wear little glasses. I don't know. There's a lot going on for me. It's kind of a lot, but that is also, it is a fun ride. If you like the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, you'll like this type of ride. It's the same type of trackless ride system. And that ride is also one of the most popular rides. So the lines will be super, super long, and you can try for regular Genie Plus and get a Lightning Lane, but you have to do that first thing in the morning. Like as soon as Genie Plus opens at 7 in the morning, if you're staying in a hotel at Disney, then you need to be on there and try to get your Lightning Lane. Now, for me, it's never really been that important to get up early to be able to do that. And that is included in regular Genie Plus. It is not an additional fee. It was an additional fee at one time, but now it is part of the same Genie Plus system. Every time I have ridden it, have I done Lightning Lane? One time there was a storm, like a rainstorm. There's always a rainstorm in Florida, and I don't know why. I was with my mom at that trip, and we were just like, oh, let's just go back to Ratatouille and see if there's a line. And it said there was a 30-minute line, and we walked up to it, and we said to the cast members, like, do you really think it's 30 minutes? And they said, maybe, but probably not. And we're like, okay. And then we just walked right onto the ride. Like there was no wait. We didn't even stop really to get our glasses. So they do inflate the times a little bit, but it's still a pretty long line. Getting a Lightning Lane is great for it. So if you are able to, get the Lightning Lane for that. So those are the two big rides that people go to or go for to Epcot, which I totally get. They are really fun rides. Then the other two rides, the half rides, you know how I said there's like 2 and 2 half rides that are really popular at Epcot. The 2 half rides are Frozen Ever After and Test Track. So Frozen Ever After is in the Norway Pavilion where Maelstrom used to be. And I don't know, I don't think it's that great. I've taken it a couple times and I'm always like, oh, okay. I don't know. I don't think it's that great, but it is very, very popular. It's a really, really popular Lightning Lane. And I think it's because it's Frozen and kids, etc., etc. So that is a really popular line. Definitely, that's one of the Lightning Lanes you should prioritize for sure. The other one is Test Track, which I have never been on. I don't know, you design a car and then like go around a test track. I don't know. It's fine. fine. I don't know. On Mammoth Club, Molly says like it's really fun for kids, but if you are a regular adult driver, it's like it's slower than driving on the highway. So I don't know if that's your priority, then that's awesome. Get a lightning lane for that or stand in line. That's fine. But those are like fun rides that you can do when you're there, but I don't know. I don't think either of them should really draw you to the park, I guess. But if you are going for rides, then definitely you are doing Guardians of the Galaxy. You're doing Ratatouille, you're doing Frozen Ever After, and you're doing Test Track because those are the rides that are the most popular. Now, there's also Mission Space. That made me have a nervous breakdown. Avoid it at all costs. It was designed with NASA to like simulate what it's like to go to Mars or go to the moon. The first version of it was so intense that they had to do a less intense version. I have done the intense version. It is lore in my family how much of a nervous breakdown I had. It basically just like jiggles up your brain and your nervous system and your heart and your soul, and you will need to go to the hotel after. Probably not. There was a 10-year-old in front of me that I was like, if he could do it, I could do it. I was wrong. He could do it. I could not do it. Then there are very popular rides like Soarin' and Livin' with the Land. These rides are popular because they are very like family friendly. They're cool, but they're family friendly. So Soarin', you are like sitting in this contraption and then it's like you are paragliding over popular places across California, but right now it is popular places around the world. There's also like scents, like smells that come out when you're traveling in these places. And as Molly from Mammoth Club said, it's everybody's mom's favorite ride. Soarin' gets really big lines. I don't know. And it's they're dark lines. I mean, Florida heat and Florida sun is intense, but I still wouldn't want to spend an hour and a half in like the dark inside of the land pavilion to see Soarin'. But if there is no if there's no line or I have a lightning lane, then I will definitely do it. One time I had to rent a scooter because I had injured my foot, and they let me actually go through the lightning lane. They pixie dusted me to go through the lightning lane to get on the ride early. It was the end of the night. The main line wasn't too long, and it was super fun driving the scooter through these like big hallways down the line. It was really fun. On my past trip when I wasn't in a scooter, but I was like walking through the lightning lane area, I was like, oh, this would have been so much better if I had a scooter. Right next to Soarin' is Livin' with the Land, which is just a small boat ride through the indoor greenhouse. It is cool to see the greenhouse for sure, and they have started making some small overlays during the festivals to like highlight certain things. There is an audio track that remains the same through all of those different things, so you don't really get a lot of specific details about what you're looking at. You get general details about those areas of the greenhouse. But if you are interested in more specific details, then you should look into the Behind the Seeds tour. And actually, the greenhouse, that land pavilion greenhouse, was designed for these educational behind the scenes tours. So definitely check those out. Usually it's not too bad to get a spot. I think right now the prices are around, okay, I'm going to say under $50. Definitely under $50. I don't know if it's 35 or 40, but it's fairly affordable and it's a pretty cool tour. Definitely. I would highly recommend it if you are interested in like plants and vegetables and greenhouses and things like that. If you like slow moving boats, then another ride that you're going to want to prioritize is the Three Caballeros ride in the Mexican Pavilion, which is like right in that big pyramid, and it's a boat ride through different like places in Mexico. It is adorably charming. Nobody would go to Epcot to prioritize that ride, but I love it. A lot of people love it, and I can see why one would want to prioritize it because it is really, really fun. So there's a couple options. One thing that's not a ride, but it is an attraction, is the new Moana water walkthrough. It is beautiful. It is so well done. It is also very educational. It is really, really cool. But as a walkthrough, it is also really busy. And I have found that when I have gone, I want to spend more time. I want to enjoy it more. I want to take more pictures. I want to read more, but there's just too many people. So I have gone and I've done it a few times, but I am kind of waiting for it to become a little less popular before I really, really like dive in. Get it? And enjoy, like really, really thoroughly enjoy my time there. And the one last ride, I think I've got them all, is Spaceship Earth, which is that giant ball right in the middle of Epcot. Actually, it's not in the middle of Epcot. That giant ball that's right at the front of Epcot that is the icon. There is a ride in that. It is also slow moving. It's about the history of communications. It was supposed to close and get a renovation in March 2020. Dun, dun, dun. But COVID changed those plans, and I haven't heard of any plans to like give it a revive since. I guess they just don't think that the money is worth it right now. And yeah, it's a classic ride. It gets a long line because people will see it when they enter the park, or they'll plan on doing it when they leave the park. And so it's just like the waves of people are coming at the same time. But you can usually find it as a walk-on as well in the middle of the afternoon. So I would keep an eye on that for sure. So those are the rides. If you were going to Epcot for the rides, like you're doing Guardians, you're doing Ratatouille, you're doing Test Track, you're doing Soarin', maybe you're doing Mission Space because you hate the way your brain currently is in your skull and you want it to maybe like flip around a few times. You're doing all those things and you aren't really focused on the rest of the stuff going on, and that's totally cool. I think of Epcot as separated into 3 sections. Well, maybe 4 sections now that the construction walls are down in the middle. So the first section, by the way, these are very unscientific or precise titles. The first section is what I call the new space stuff. And that is where Test Track is, Mission Space and Guardians of the Galaxy. Even though Mission Space, it is not new, and Test Track is not space at all, it doesn't matter. I just think of that as the new space stuff. And to be honest, I usually avoid that part of the park quite a bit. Then I think of the old land stuff, or the old like Earth stuff. And that is the Moana walkthrough, the Land Pavilion, the Seas Pavilion. Oh, I just remembered a ride. The Seas Pavilion, even though the Seas Pavilion is not land and the Moana walkthrough is not old, I just think of that section of the park as the old like land section. I don't avoid this area like I avoid the new space section, but I don't necessarily make it as much of a priority. And I should say the ride that I forgot was the Seas with Nemo and Friends, which is in the Seas Pavilion. And it is a very charming dark ride. And it is always very cold, and I think of it as like the perfect thing to cool you down. It rarely has a long line, and so that is also a very easy ride for you to do, even if you're not a ride person. So there's the new space stuff, the old land stuff. Now there's a new section that's like the Middle Gardens, which is going to have new programming and development as it kind of grows. The construction walls for that area was taken down in January, so it is very new. And then there is the World Showcase, which is the main area that I spend my time in when I go to Epcot. Now, when you are thinking about going to Epcot for vibes or for food, for me, the time that you are spending is mainly at World Showcase. So World Showcase is that big area that's only 1 mile around, which seems crazy. It seems like it should be way bigger than that. And there are all these different pavilions, these areas that are for different countries like Canada, Mexico, Japan, Morocco, France, England, Italy, Norway, China, Japan. No, I'm just trying to make sure I get them all. America. I did an MRI a couple months ago. It was no big deal. And people say it's very relaxing and they got to listen to music. I did not. I just panicked in this tiny little like corn dog maker with me as the hot dog. And as a way to calm myself as I was getting shaken up in this machine is to like try to name all of the pavilions around Epcot. That was my That was my go-to calming mechanism. So all of these pavilions are really, really beautiful, and if you're going for vibes, then you're really spending a lot of time, I would guess, at World Showcase, walking around, going in and out of the different buildings in World Showcase, like really appreciating it. All of the different pavilions. I say pavilions, like I don't want you to think these are small. They're quite large. They all have stores. They have a snack bar, a quick service restaurant, a sit-down restaurant. Some of the pavilions also have a signature, more expensive restaurant. They all have like an exhibit space. All of them, most of them have some sort of attraction. So you can spend all day just going in and out of these different pavilions. Now, the Moroccan pavilion, I would say, is like objectively the most beautiful. And the reason why I say that when I say objectively is because the Kingdom of Morocco actually sent artisans to Epcot to build and do all of the tiling throughout the Moroccan pavilion. So the detail there is like second to none. It is so, so gorgeous. It is so thoughtful and full of love and full of artistry. It is really, really amazing. And like definitely go and just appreciate the fact that like Moroccan artisans created this space for us to look at, and that the Kingdom of Morocco wanted it to be so beautiful that they sponsored these extra skilled artisans to do that. So yeah, it's really, really beautiful. Whereas the Canadian pavilion, as a Canadian, it's funny because like growing up, even in my early 20s, whenever I went to Disney, I never really associated the Canadian pavilion with Canada. It is a mixed bag of geography. There is stuff from the west coast of Canada. There is stuff from like Ottawa. There's stuff from Quebec, like French Canada, so central Canada. Is there stuff from the East Coast? I don't know, but like Canada is larger than the United States, and somehow they smushed it all together. And it's always really bugged me because when I look at the Canadian pavilion, it does not resonate as home to me. And I wonder if that is the same for the other people from other countries when they are in those pavilions. However, I read that the reason why the Canada Pavilion is so maybe disjointed is because Epcot or Disney wanted Canada to sponsor the pavilion like they did in Morocco, for example, or like they did in some of the other pavilions. And Canada refused to. They didn't want to put that money. They didn't agree on the plan, etc., etc. And so they just had to, like Disney had to put something together with less time and less thought and less kind of like knowledge about the country than they could have with the other places, because Canada did not play fair. So every time I pass it now, I'm just like, ugh, Canada, look what you did. That's why there is Haida totem poles, which is from like the Vancouver area, the west coast of Canada, right next to a version of Niagara Falls, which is like in central Canada, which is right next to what's supposed to be either the Parliament building or the hotel beside the Parliament building in Ottawa, which is hours away from Niagara Falls. Like, anyway, it frustrates me. It obviously frustrates me. But anyway, so if you're going for vibes, you're going to be able to check out all those different pavilions. It's really, really cool. There is a space in the Moroccan pavilion as well as like the China pavilion and the Japan pavilion. I'm sure there's a couple others, but those are off the top of my head that have these rotating exhibits. And they haven't rotated, though, since COVID. Like, they used to change all the time, and they haven't changed too much. So I hope that now that we're kind of back from COVID, that there is money being infused in the parks again, they will invest in those exhibits so that there's new things to take a look at. If you go to the American Pavilion, inside that main building, there is an exhibit space on art of American Indians, like fashion and like skateboards. It is an excellent, very cool exhibit. Definitely go and spend some time there. It is really, really cool. So if you're going to Epcot for vibes, you have all of World Showcase to explore, and it's really, really awesome. All right, so we covered vibes, although like food is definitely a part of vibes. And the other reason why you might go to Epcot is just for the food, because definitely Epcot has the best food across the four parks. And that is because of World Showcase. So, like I said, all of the World Showcase pavilions, all the different countries have a snack bar, they have a quick service, they have a sit-down restaurant, and a lot of them have a signature restaurant too, which means there are so many different options for you to just like try different things. And you could go to each one of the pavilions and try a snack that's like that Disney has identified as local to the culture. Although, like, again, I'm laughing because maple popcorn is one of the snacks at the Canadian pavilion. And like, yeah, sure, we have maple trees, but don't think that people are walking around the streets of Toronto eating maple popcorn. You know what I mean? So are people walking around the streets of Morocco eating baklava? I don't know, maybe. I can only speak for my own country. But there are so many different places that you can just go and pick up snacks. A lot of people also do drinking around the world, where they pick up a beer or a cocktail or a wine from all the different countries. And if that is your jam, then that is pretty cool too. But the other thing about the food around Epcot is the festivals. So there are 4 festivals that happen 4 times a year. And each one of those festivals have a theme, and they have their own pavilions that pop up. These are much, much smaller. They're literally food booths. And those food booths have different small portions related to the theme of the particular festival. And so, for example, at the Festival of the Arts in January, you'll get little bite-sized plates that are like artfully designed and presented, like a deconstructed lemon meringue pie. At the International Flower and Garden Festival, which is happening right now, you will find different bite-sized foods that correspond to the seasons or have some sort of floral element. Then there is International Food and Wine Festival, which is the OG festival. And like, honestly, this is my least favorite festival because like it started in the fall. It started in October for 1 month, and it became very, very popular 20 years on. But all of the foods are very like heavy, like they're fall heavy foods. And so I don't want to eat brisket or palm puree or parsnip in August in Florida. No, thank you. Sure, I'll have it in November, but not in Florida August heat. Usually the International Food and Wine Festival starts right after the Flower and Garden Festival. So there is the International Festival of the Arts that is like January, February. Then there is the Flower and Garden Festival, which is like March, April, May, June sometimes. And then right after that is the International Food and Wine Festival, which goes July, August, September, October, November. Again, I don't understand why it goes through the summer. And then there is the International Festival of the Holidays, which is actually just a Christmas festival, and that is through December. I actually wish there was a 5th festival that was really just those hot summer months where it was like July and August, just serving ceviche, like just cold things, just cold. Like this is the festival where we do cold things, you know? But be that as it may, usually the Food and Wine Festival starts right at the beginning of summer. And then there's just like hot, heavy gravy foods all through the summer. Ugh. Anyway, so if you are going for foods, you might be going to be able to see all of those different food pavilions and like fill up on that. And I definitely think like I am an average woman in my 40s, and I definitely think that like 3 or 4 plates can be a meal for me, and that I could graze for the better part of a couple hours and definitely be full enough with those foods. And so it's a great thing to like try all these different things. Like I've tried things that I've never tried before because of the festivals. I've tried bone marrow for the first time because it was a thing. Like I've always gone to these festivals being like, I'm going to eat everything. That has never happened because either of my stomach or the lines, but I definitely try. And so definitely like try something new. Like it's because the sizes of these portions are not so big that if you don't like it, it's not like a complete waste. And if you have the dining plan, by the way, the portions at the food festival counts as a snack credit, which is definitely the best deal of all of the dining plan, different ways you can configure your credits. Take note that the World Showcase and the food pavilions don't really open until 11 a.m. So there's no reason to get to Epcot at the crack of dawn at rope drop if you are going for food and vibes. If you're doing the rides, sure, and that's a good thing to strategize your lightning lanes, etc., etc. But if you're going for rides and if you're going for vibes and you're going for food, you can get there at 11, right? Or you can get there at 10 and start walking around, and then you'll get hungry and you can get something to eat. The France Pavilion, because it is the closest to the entrance from the boardwalk and the yacht club and the beach club and the Skyliner, they actually do have some breakfast options like tucked in, but this is not a park that you need to get to super, super early. And in fact, especially on the weekends, in the evening, the park gets full, especially with locals who just come for the food festival. The other thing about the different festivals is that they all have a concert series in the concert pavilion around the America Pavilion. I forget what it's called, like the Sons of Liberty, I don't know, something like that. And so a lot of people will also just come to hear a band, eat some food, enjoy, again, the vibes. And it's really just a really lovely way to spend a morning, an afternoon, an early evening, a regular evening at Epcot. And especially as a solo, like there's so much to do. You always feel kind of connected to others because it is busy, but it is not kind of cloying because it was designed with like really big sidewalks. So yeah, there's a lot you can do. Rides, vibes, or food. Why do you go to Epcot? What are the things that you definitely are looking forward to doing at Epcot when you go? What are the things that are like definitely must-dos or must-eats? Do you think that organizing it as rides, vibes, and food is a good way of planning your day? Please let me know on Instagram, Disney_solo_magic. Now, I have a bonus episode coming up this week. And this bonus episode, like the bonus episode a couple weeks ago, is like the same length as this episode. And it's because I am just going to talk about the festivals, and I'm going to talk primarily about the Flower and Garden Festival. So when I am recording this, I haven't been to Disney for the Flower and Garden Festival yet. But by the time you are listening to it, I will have gone and to the Flower and Garden Festival a couple of times. And so I wanted to record an episode when I got back so that you could hear about the festival. And I wanted to share with you other information about the festival. And I can already see that I've talked longer than I wanted to. So why don't we put all that information into a new episode? So coming out on Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember which day I schedule the bonus episodes on, you will hear a new episode about all of the festivals with a particular focus on this year's Flower and Garden Festival, because it will be, by the time you are listening to this, or by the time it is posted, it will be available or on for another month. And if you're thinking about going that last month, you'll be able to hear the episode to decide if you want to go. All right, that was it. It was great talking with you as always. I guess you will hear me later this week to talk about festivals and Flower and Garden. Bye.